Welcome back, guys, to yet another North to South show. What is it today? It's Wednesday, May 12th. Welcome back to another show. It is a beautiful day out here in Toronto. I was able to get out, play some pickup basketball with my friends. Got cardio in, I can tell you that. Ever since COVID has happened and everything, my cardio hasn't been that good, so it's good that I'm getting back out. But today, we're doing a bit of a shorter show because coming up just I'm pretty sure at 7:30 or something like that. It is around that time. We got the NFL schedule dropping out, and we're all football fans here. I think that's something that we're all interested in, so I do not want to keep you guys from that. Also, I need to see who my Chicago Bears are playing and when, and I'm going to make a video on that. So there's going to be a video out shortly from this, from about the Bears schedule, and then these will be out later. But on the schedule for today, we're going to talk some Florida Gators football. I can't believe that I haven't talked anything about the Florida Gators because, being honest, Florida Gator fans have given me so much support on this channel, and all those videos do really, really well. I can't believe I haven't talked about them yet. And then we're getting into our best versus the rest segment where we are breaking down Auburn and Penn State today. That's going to be a great out-of-conference game that we're not used to. Auburn travels to Penn State. Hopefully with full fans, lots to get into there because that is also a very, very interesting game that this is the game that, out of all the games I've talked about, this game, I have no clue who's going to win. It could honestly go either way. The other ones, yeah, I think Alabama's going to win. I think Georgia's going to win. I'm getting more confident about that every single day, that they're going to beat Clemson this upcoming year. I'm more confident that Texas is going to beat Arkansas. So the last three games I've done have been really, really easier games, but oh, here's a great question. You know what? We got a question. You know what? Before we even get off starting about the show, let's do this because we have Neo with a great question. How did you become a Gamecocks fan living in Toronto? So starting the show off today with a little fan question. Long story. So I used to travel to South Carolina all the time. Like, my family owns a timeshare down there. We've traveled there my whole life. I was big into football at the time, like NFL football. Again, I was a big Bears fan. I also like the Panthers too. So I've watched a lot of football, and I love football. Football was my favorite sport. Every single weekend I was watching it. I was involved even from a very, very young age. I was never really a college football fan though, until I started going down south and learning about college football. And I remember just one day, um, my parents went out shopping while we were on vacation, and then me and my sister stayed back at the resort with my grandparents. And my dad came back and he was like, "No, I wanted to buy you this football jersey, but your mother wouldn't let me because it said Cox on it, because like that's a bad word and all, and especially from where we're from, like no one, if you said Gamecocks, no one would know what on earth you're talking about." So then after that, like, I was really mad because I love wearing football jerseys. You see, I got a ton behind me. I got some here. It's been something that I love doing ever since I was a little kid. And then after, I was like, I still want to know what this team is or whatever. So I get introduced to the Gamecocks. I start watching a bunch of their games and everything. And then instantly I become a super fan. My first Gamecocks game ever, we went to Tennessee on our way down to South Carolina. And that was a huge game in 2013. If we won that game, we would have won the SEC East. But ever since that day, like, my South Carolina, my love for college football, and that's really what started this channel and everything, is my love for college football, not just the Gamecocks. Yes, I love the Gamecocks more than anything else, but I really just love the sport in general. I love the culture around college football. I love the diversity with all the different teams. There's just a lot to love in college football. So that is how I became a Gamecocks fan living in Toronto, and I'm happy to say that next year I will officially be a Gamecock, as I am attending the University of South Carolina. So that's going to be fun. It's going to be really, really fun. So I'm excited. Great question, Neo. I appreciate the question. But now let's get into our first segment of the day. First segment of the day of the first two. We got two today. Talking about the Florida Gators. And I said it in my intro that Florida Gators fans, they give me a ton of support on this channel. Like, I have a ton of Florida Gators supporters who are subscribers and anything, and all those videos do really, really well. And I cannot believe I have not talked about the Florida Gators once yet on this show. I've talked about Texas A&M, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, all these different schools, but I haven't even talked about the Florida Gators. So Florida Gator fans, this one's for you, by the way. Just dropped, you see it, I got the North to South show hat right here. Just dropped my Florida version, has the Florida State outline, and it is in orange and blue. It looks amazing. Florida fans, definitely go get yours. You can hit the link in the description to go get yours. They'll be on sale for $25. Go get yours. I tell you, these hats are amazing quality. You do not want to miss out, and they look super, super clean. Super clean. Go get one. Let's talk about the Florida Gators and my expectations for this season, because my expectations are going to be way different than your expectations as a Florida Gators fan, or if you're just an average college football fan, your expectations are going to be way different than mine, because I'm in this really, really bad place of my opinion of the Florida Gators, where my opinion or my expectation of the Florida Gators this year is a lot worse than what Florida Gators fans think that they're going to be this season. But that being said, they're still way higher than what lots of people have said about how good the Florida Gators are actually going to be this season, because they are just taking into account the losses that they did have last season and the guys they lost last season, and aren't really looking at the talent and the quality of guys that they have under them. I'm going to be the first guy to come out and say, and I'm pretty sure every single Florida fan, every single fan in college football would agree in saying that you lost a lot of talent and this offense is not going to be as good as it was last year. It just can't be. That offense was a playoff ready offense. The defense is another story. The defense wasn't there. Otherwise, you would have had a complete team. And I think that this Florida Gators team makes the playoffs again. If they beat Texas A&M, I think if their defense is better, they beat Texas A&M. If their defense is better and their team plays better as a whole, I think they definitely beat LSU in that game. Even if they don't play better, there's just the one shoe throw by Marco Wilson or a missed field goal by McPherson, which I think it wasn't that bad. It was a hard kick to make. I'm not blaming him for that game. But you would have been in that moment, which leads you into the SEC championship, which would put you in a spot to be in the talk about getting into the college football playoff. Once they lost LSU, in my opinion, they were gone. They weren't going to get in. It just wasn't going to happen with two losses. And if you go back to that SEC championship game, like, you might have been a John Mechie not blowing up your DB away and forcing that fumble. Let's say Alabama does turn the ball over there and Florida goes down and score. I think that makes a way different ball game than what we finished out with. It would have made the score a lot closer in the end, and who knows how that game could have shaped out then. And let's say that LSU game, Marco Wilson doesn't throw the shoe. Just those two things, I take those two things, and Florida could have easily been a playoff team last year. Like, it is such minor stuff that you just look at in these games that in the long term did cost Florida last season, because this was a really good team. Now, again, this isn't the same team that they were last year. The offense isn't going to be as good as they were last year. I think the defense isn't bad, but we'll get into the defense later. But let's talk about this offense first. I think Emory Jones alone will be a lot better than people think he is. Obviously, Kyle Trask goes on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, by the way. Absolutely loved that pick by the Buccaneers. I had him, Kyle Trask, going in the first round at 32, but they wait, grab him in second round, have him develop under Brady. I think that's amazing. But Emory Jones, in the short little bits that we did see him last year, you take, for example, the Oklahoma game in the Cotton Bowl, wasn't a great game for Kyle Trask at all, but I think Emory Jones has way more talent and is a much better passer than a lot of people will give him credit for. And obviously, he has big shoes to fill because he's stepping in for a Heisman finalist. But Emory Jones, I think, could definitely be a top half, at least top half SEC quarterback. I think he is definitely in that top 7. Top 3 is a bit of a stretch. I still go JT, I still go Matt Corral, and I still go Bryce. That's not in the correct order. I said Matt Corral is my number 1. I think I even had Bryce Young as my number 2 in my SEC quarterback rankings, or who is my best SEC quarterback. And I think I had JT at number 3. I don't think he's in that top tier yet, but not to say that he can't get there. He's definitely a top tier SEC or top half SEC quarterback going into the season. And I think a lot of people aren't giving him credit for that. Let's talk about this 5-star running back, DeMarcus Bowman, coming in from Clemson, that a lot of people just don't talk about. You lose a couple guys in the running back room, but I think that the running back room as a whole is really, really good this season. I'm not saying Texas A&M good. I'm not saying Georgia good. I'm not saying South Carolina good, but it is relatively good next season. DeMarcus Bowman, I look at Malik Davis too. I think that Florida's rushing game is going to be fine. I think it may even be better than it was last year. Again, Florida was so heavily invested in the passing attack last season. I think this rushing game will really, really help Emory Jones this season, who's obviously, he's not going to come in and just have an amazing Heisman season and just be throwing dimes all over the place. He still has to work in. Again, going from being the backup and getting backup experience is way different than being the guy and getting the guy experience, the starter experience, because when you're the backup and you make mistakes, you're hurting the starter's team. When you're the starter and you make mistakes, you're hurting your own team. So I think that DeMarcus Bowman and Malik Davis will really, really help Emory Jones get into the rhythm of the game going in. And I think that this wide receiver room, yes, it's not going to be anywhere close to what it was last year. Like, you're talking Kyle Pitts, you're talking Kadarius Toney, and you're talking Trevon Grimes. Those three guys were very, very, very good players. Some of the best wide receivers or receivers, pass catchers that I've ever seen in my history of being alive at Florida, of being a college football fan. Again, I haven't been that invested in the game. I've only been in the game for like a decade. So cut me some slack if you're like, oh, you're missing this person. I'm still learning, still got lots to learn. I'm young, and that's why I'm getting into making this content stuff now. But I think Copeland, I think Henderson, I think like guys like Zippier, I look at guys like Whittemore. I don't think that they're going to be bad as people think. Again, the drop was so big. The players that you had going on were so good that it just makes whoever's under that look a lot worse. And you also look like guys like Shorter. I think that those guys right there, they're not as bad as people are going to think they are. Alabama's going through the same thing right now. You think that people think the guys under them are going to be good. You think that John Mechie, you think that Jameson Williams, you think that Ajayi Hall, guys like that are going to get to the level of Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Jerry Jeudy, and Henry Ruggs. Currently, right now, no one thinks that because no one has seen enough of these guys to make a educated statement. So therefore, you just go to the fact that Alabama's wide receiver core is going to be terrible compared to what it was. When really, in reality, you have no clue. You don't really have any clue what you have in these guys that I just named. I think Copeland's going to be the main guy here. Again, you saw Copeland a lot last year, and I really like Copeland. I think he's a really good player, and I think that he's going to lead this Florida receiving core. And my most underrated guy on this whole Florida Gators team, and again, it's kind of that factor of the guy that you had in front of you was so good that just like people don't pay attention to you. But Gamble, I think Gamble can definitely be one of the better tight ends in all of the SEC. And I think, yes, you're filling in for Kyle Pitts, who is arguably one of the greatest tight ends that college football has ever seen. But Gamble is my most underrated player on this Florida team. I have no problem going out there and saying that. Kier Allen is one of the best players in all of college football. I think that he's an easy first rounder for the Florida Gators next season, obviously in the secondary for him. I don't think Florida's defense will be that bad. It wasn't great last year, but I don't think that they're having any major changes to this defense in terms of a personnel standpoint. Yes, you lose Marco Wilson, but if I'm a Florida fan, I'd want him gone anyways for what he did. I think that this D-line too, with Brenton Cox and Zachary Carter and Gravon Dexter, I still think that they got a really, really good D-line. And I think Florida in general, as a team right now, I look at this team, and when people say that they're going to finish like 6-6, or this Florida team's going to finish like 7-5 and have that many losses, I think that this is at least an 8+ win team, at least an 8+ win team. But with that being said, this kind of gets us into my whole expectation discussion of, is this team good enough to beat Georgia? Are they good enough to beat Alabama? Are they good enough to beat LSU? Because you've got a meaty schedule this year. I think the most important one out of all these is Georgia. So we're going to save that for last, but let's get into Alabama and LSU. I think Alabama's offense in total, yes, I just said that there's so much talent on this Florida offense and people really underestimate them. I just don't think that they're at the scoring level that Alabama will be at this season. Alabama scores, and they score fast, and they score a lot. I just don't know. I haven't seen enough from Florida this season to be like, yeah, Florida will definitely go toe-to-toe with Alabama and their offense next season. I feel really good about Bryce Young. I feel really good about the rushing game at Alabama and the receiving game out there. So I just don't think that they could beat Alabama. Yes, you get this game in Florida. Yes, the environment in Florida is going to help you. It's going to be an amazing game. Definitely one of the bigger SEC games of the season, probably top two. You look at this one, and then you look at probably Georgia, Florida, or like Alabama, Texas A&M. This is definitely going to be SEC championship rematch. Do I think that they have what it takes to beat Alabama? No. I think that Alabama's defense has got a lot better this year, even though they lost a couple guys. Obviously, you look at Patrick Surtain, but they got a lot of good talent on that defense still that people just haven't taken note of. So Alabama, I really don't think that they're good enough to beat Alabama yet this season. Again, I could be completely wrong, but again, I don't know. LSU, and this isn't just because I'm wearing an LSU jersey. I'm not an LSU fan. I just have the jersey. I'm a big jersey collector. I love Joe Burrow this season. And of course, he got the number 9 on there. So I picked up the jersey. I'm a jersey collector. It's what I do. LSU next season, again, is I think that I don't know what to call LSU, if we're being honest, because LSU was the team with the talent to be a really top tier college football team. But will they produce at a level that will make them a top tier college football team? You look at Derek Stingley, probably the best corner in all of college football. You still have him. I think Miles Brennan, even Max Johnson, after watching Max Johnson in LSU's spring game, he could definitely be the starter there. I just think LSU has a really, really good quarterback battle, and whoever lands there is going to be a good guy. And I think TJ Finley has just entered the transfer portal. So it's going to be Miles Brennan or it's going to be Max Johnson. Everything about LSU, the receiving game with Moody and everything, the defense, I still think is very, very good. LSU has the talent to be a really good team this year. You travel to Death Valley. Again, that's another thing. This game isn't at Florida this year because last year was in Florida. This game is going to be in Death Valley, LSU. It's going to be really, really tough. I'm not saying that this is an automatic loss for Florida. I'm not saying that this is an automatic loss for LSU. This is a true toss-up game. This could be 50-50, and a lot more is going to be dealt with as the season goes on and as everything becomes more clear. Now going on to Georgia, because this is the one that all Florida fans are going to be here for. Do I expect Florida to beat Georgia? I'm going to be straight up and say it. No, I don't think that Florida is good enough to beat Georgia this season. I had Florida beating Georgia last season. I think that Florida was definitely the better football team last season. Even if Georgia had JT Daniels last season, I still think that Florida wins that game. I don't care what the Georgia fans say, but I think that Georgia's a tier above, especially offensively this year and defensively. I feel really, really good about this front for Georgia this season. They're going to get some serious pressure on the quarterbacks, whoever they're going up against, and they're going to get home. But JT Daniels, you got one of the best running back rooms in all of college football, let alone the SEC, in Zamir White, in James Cook. You got tons of talent there. Yes, you have Pickens out, but your receiving core, I still think, is really, really good over there in Georgia. I just think Georgia will be able to score more, and Georgia will be able to stop this Florida offense way more than this Florida defense will be able to stop Georgia's offense. I think that Georgia's just a better team on both sides of the ball. I take them on both sides of the ball. But again, that's not to say that Florida can't win this game. That's not to say that Florida can't win the Alabama game. That's not to say Florida can't win the LSU game. Again, these are just my expectations and what I think of Florida this season. I had my Gamecocks as a toss-up game in my Florida 2021 season predictions. I had the Gamecocks as a toss-up game. I think I might have had like Missouri in there. I had some questionable ones. And to be honest, I don't know what to think of this Florida Gators team, but what I do know is that this is definitely a better than 6-6 team, which I've seen people say that they are 6-6 or 7-5 or something like that. I think this team at least gets eight wins. I think that they definitely take care of business against like Kentucky, Tennessee. They take care of business against Vandy, obviously Florida State. Again, I said South Carolina was a toss-up, which I do think you go to South Carolina. I don't think that that's going to be an easy game by any means, but Florida still has work to do, and who knows? They could be a really good team this year, but that's my expectations for Florida. I don't see them winning Georgia. I don't see them winning Alabama, and I see LSU as a true toss-up. So I'm looking somewhere around the 10-2, 9-3 range for Florida at the end of the season. So that's that segment, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. We got more people. Let's see. We'll take some comments. It'll be UGA and Bama. I'm guessing you're talking about the SEC championship. And I completely 100% agree. Like, I'm going to come out with more videos when we get into summer and like SEC media days get past it, everything, when content will really be in full swing. But I do agree that right now I would bet a lot of money on the SEC championship being Georgia and Alabama. Like, I think that there's just such a gap between Georgia and then you look at Florida, Missouri, South Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. There's just such a talent gap there and such a consistency gap that I see there that on any given Saturday, I think Georgia can go out and beat anyone. Can I say the same about those other teams? I don't know if I can. And then you look at Alabama on the other half. Texas A&M, I do think is going to be a good team this year. Again, that offensive line has a lot of trouble. They do have a good rushing game, and I do think that that receiving core is better than a lot of people would give them credit for. But do I see Texas A&M, especially with a first-year starter going into that season, in a game that will be played? Again, they get the game at Texas A&M, but is the gap between Alabama and Texas A&M, or maybe Alabama and LSU, a lot closer than people think. No, I still think that that gap's wide open. I don't care if you're bringing in a first-year starter and Bryce Young. He has 5 stars next to his name for a reason. He was one of, if not the most talented quarterback recruit in all of his class. I think that Bryce Young will have a phenomenal season. And I think that Alabama's defense will be a lot better than what a lot of people are expecting them to be next year. So I just think it's going to be really hard. Something's going to have to go wrong for both of those programs to not meet up in the SEC championship. That's just how I see it. Let's see. Alex Howard. Neo, see you in the SEC championship again. Go Dogs. Yes, I'm completely dismissing Florida as a credible threat this year. I mean, that's what I just went through. Like, I think that Florida, like, yeah, I heard you say, yeah, Florida's defense is trash. Like, I don't think Florida's a trash team this year, but the gap between Florida and Georgia is very, very visible this year. I'd say that very, very visible. And it's just so hard to justify Florida going out this season when you have so much. I think experience really, really kills for Georgia this season because JT's one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. He's got tons of experience. I think this running back room has tons of experience. Even though Pickens is God, I still think the wide receiver room has tons of experience. And then that D line is stacked with tons of good guys. So I think, again, I wouldn't say Florida is trash this season, but I just can't. I can't justify them going out and beating Georgia right now. Currently, let's say Georgia loses to Clemson. Let's say Georgia loses or has a tight game against a bad team or something like that, and Florida's going off. Then maybe I can justify it. But right now, when we haven't seen these teams play in full force yet, no chance. No chance I can say that Florida will beat Georgia. Let's take another question from Neo. After that remark that Jimbo made about beating Nick Saban, I think Bama will. Yeah, I think Bama will win too. Yeah, you play in Texas A&M, but we're acting like Nick Saban hasn't gone into Texas A&M and beat Texas A&M before. Nick Saban, again, here's another comment that I love by Neo is killing it today. Shout out to you, buddy. You're killing the game with the comments today. Saban is like Bill Belichick, and they are both the exact same guy in both of their sports because it's the same sport, but in both of their leagues, they don't need to do that talking before games. And you look at what, like, Dabo Swinney said about Ohio State, where he's like, oh, they're the 11th best team in the country. There was no chance that Nick Saban would do that, first of all, because he doesn't feel the need to, and he would probably know that just fired Ohio State up and did that. Nick Saban just goes out and gets his guys to perform on the field, and that's why he has, 7 national champions. Nick Saban is the greatest coach in college football history. Yes, people will get upset that him winning is so repetitive, but to that I just say, why has no one stopped him yet? Why has no one dethroned Nick Saban? It's because he's the best. I have a lot of respect for Nick Saban. I need to see an Alabama game coached by Nick Saban before he does retire. But again, we'll bring up a comment from Luke Sharp. Looks like we got some Tennessee Titans and Tennessee Volunteers in there. He respects Nick Saban. That is class from a Tennessee fan. I will tell you that. Class move. Here we go. Alex Howard. And UGA finally has entered a modern day of offense. Yes, I think that is a big factor in this season because you look at Georgia's offense last season. I don't think that there was enough passing attack, especially in the beginning of the season, from like guys like Stetson Bennett and everything, to be able to beat Bama in that game. Yes, that game was close, but in the first half, but I still don't think that it was enough. But I do think this year, if you let JT Daniels spin the ball, like I remember watching that spring game, as the game went on and as they let JT Daniels actually throw the ball deep, he's got a really nice arm. He can put some spin on that ball. So I think if you allow JT to throw the ball deep more, I think Georgia will be a very, very successful team this year. So you said there will be no more running the ball 10 times in a row before passing an 8-yard curl. Yeah, again. And I think that Georgia's running game is good. I have no problem with Georgia, if they can, relying on the running game. But again, I wouldn't run it 10 times in a row and then just throw one pass. Yes, Georgia will be a force this year. Completely agree. As much as I hate to say it, because big Gamecock fan, watch out for the Gamecocks back this season. Here's a comment that I love. Oh, guys, chill with the comments. They're too good today. I still got another segment to get through, but I'm still stuck on these because guys keep bringing out good comments. Georgia versus Oklahoma rematch for the national championship this season would be so lit. I completely agree. I have Oklahoma is my favorite for the national championship. I'll be honest, like I like seeing SEC teams win no matter if I don't like them or not. I just think Oklahoma, you look at that offensive side of the ball, I think Spencer Rattler is the best quarterback in college football. I think that Eric Gray adding on to what Oklahoma already had on the offense, he's going to have a big season. Marvin Mims is definitely one of the better wide receivers in all of college football. Even that defense, the defense is a lot better than what people give them credit for, because the old thing about the Big 12 having trash defenses is completely, like, it's true. The Big 12 doesn't have good defenses, but I think Oklahoma's this season, especially led by Nick Bonito over there, linebacker for Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is a really, really good team this year. I tell you that. They are going to be a real force. And I bet my money right now in Oklahoma. I think they're like plus 800 or something right now on my bookie, but I think that Alabama's like plus 300 or something like that. I don't think Clemson's as good as people think they are. I still think that they're going to be a good team. I don't think that as the days go on, as the year rolls by, I am more confident each and every day that Georgia will go out this September and beat Clemson. I really feel strong about that. So good questions. So we'll get into some more fan questions if we have time at the end. I don't know when this NFL schedule thing comes out, but we got to get into this Auburn Penn State game. Auburn's Penn State. We'll get an early look into that because it is our best versus the rest segment where I break down an SEC versus a non-conference opponent, a good non-conference opponent. I'm not talking like, let's say Alabama goes out, or Auburn this season will go out and play at Alabama State. Like, I'm not going to break it down this game, but this game that we have here, Auburn versus Penn State, definitely one of the bigger non-conference games in the SEC this season. And out of the ones I've done so far, I've done Miami, Alabama, I've done Georgia, Clemson, and I've done Texas, Arkansas. This is definitely the hardest one for me to call. And I apologize for this, Auburn fans, although I will shout this out first. See, the North to South Show hat just dropped my Auburn ones in the store. You got the nice Auburn State outline there, and there's in orange and navy. Out of all the hats that I designed, this one, and I'd say the Ole Miss one, definitely looked the nicest on the hat. So Auburn fans, only $25 in the store. Go get yours right now. But I apologize for this. I will say this. I apologize. That's why I had to shout the hat out before I do this. Auburn fans, I'm not really a Penn State fan. I just have the hat. And if I have the hat and I'm going to talk about Penn State, I might as well put it on. I'm a big fan of just collecting a bunch of different things for a bunch of different sports teams. So when I do have segments like this where I talk about the team, I can wear it and I look more professional doing it. I got Penn State Nittany Lions up here and I got Tigers on the bottom. Again, I'm not an LSU fan either, just a jersey collector and a sports team merch collector, if that's what you want to call it. But let's get into talking about Auburn versus Penn State. This is going to be week 3. I'm pretty sure week 3 of college football. Penn State going into this game has Wisconsin, their first game. They go to Wisconsin, and then they have Ball State at home, and then they have Auburn at home in week 3. And I think Auburn, up to this point, they don't have any big games. I can't remember pinpoint who they play. I know it's between, they got Alabama State on there, they got Georgia State on there, and then there's one other team that I miss. That's between week 1, 2, and 4, and then week 3 you have Penn State jammed in there. But here's what really, let's talk about these two teams last season. So Auburn goes 6-5. I think that these were two underwhelming teams from last season. I think that Auburn's record says that they're a lot better, but all in all, if you take away the Arkansas game, you could say Auburn's 5-6 last year. There were some games where Auburn played a good game, and there's some games that Auburn just did not look good. So 6-5 for Auburn. I think that they were expected to do better, but it overall wasn't a terrible season. Penn State, on the other hand, 4-5. You look at that, especially for Penn State, you say that's a terrible season, but for an average college football team, it's not that bad. But when you have a team lose 5 games, your first 5 games of the season, it is not looking good. But Penn State bounced back. I have to give them credit for that. They beat Michigan, and ever since that Michigan game, they won the next 3, and they finished off the season with 4 wins. So this Penn State team is coming in with a 4-game win streak. Depending on what happens with the Wisconsin and Ball State game, they could be running a 6-game win streak going into this game against Auburn. So let's break down Penn State and what they're looking at from last season and then going into this season. So obviously, they played terrible for the beginning of their season in the Michigan game. The turnaround, everything happened. Penn State goes out and they win 4 games in a row to end off their season. I think James Franklin's squad looks a lot better. You could call it whatever you want to call it last season with opt-outs and COVID and everything just really, really hit Penn State hard. And they were able to bounce back. They were able to win their last 4 games, no matter who that was against. I think they still show that they got something over there at Penn State, that they're not just a waste team and they're not just wasting talent over there. You're probably going to have Sean Clifford at your quarterback position. I think Levi's is going to be the backup or is going to push for the spot, but I think Sean Clifford has the most experience. I mean, he's been at Penn State for a while. He knows the system and everything, although you are bringing in a new OC this season in Yurkich, which is going to be exciting. We're going to talk about Mike Yurkich in a second, but I think Sean Clifford's going to be your guy. He's going to be your go-to guy. Just let him ride out this season. He's got experience. He's played some Big Ten football. Let him ride out. What I really like about this Penn State team is the running back room. I think that they have a really, really good running back room. I wouldn't say that it's top of the country at all, but I think it's underrated. From when you think about Penn State's running back rooms in the past, where you have like Saquon and Miles Sanders and stuff like that, you're not going to think that they're that good, but it's still good. I look at guys like Noah Cain. I look at Devin Ford. I look at Kevon Lee. Like guys like that, I think will carry the rushing game this season. And they got tons of different guys with multiple different options. Noah Cain's coming back from an injury this season. I think that he has the capability to be definitely the best running back on this team. So I really, really like Penn State's running back room going into the season. Again, not saying they're one of the best in the country, but a lot better than what people think. Probably my favorite player on Penn State and probably the best player on this team, Jahan Dotson, is one of the most underrated wide receivers in all of college football. I have no problem in saying that because he led the Big Ten in receiving last season. He had 52 receptions, 884 yards for 8 touchdowns last year, and the kid can ball out. He had some amazing catches versus Ohio State. I remember watching that game. And let's be honest, Penn State was not completely knocked out of that game against Ohio State. They did put up a battle in that game, ultimately fell short, and they just got out-talented by Ohio State. Ohio State had a really, really good team. But Jahan Dotson, I think that him on the receiving core, he's going to be Sean Clifford's main target, and he's going to draw the most attention from each and every defense in a secondary perspective that Penn State goes up against. But I look at other guys on this wide receiving core. You look at Parker Washington and Keandre Lambert-Smith. They got a decent core over there. I'm not saying that it's best in the country. I'm not saying anything like that, but it's overall underrated, really, really underrated. So an underrated running back room and an underrated wide receiver room over there. The offensive line, I think, is where this team definitely struggles. I think they gave up like 28 sacks last season. It was not good. They cannot block for their life. And when you play a 9-game season, giving up 28 sacks is not a good thing at all. So you're definitely going to have to do some work on the offensive line, especially if you want to get this rushing game going and this passing game for all, because you don't want to get sacked. You have to protect the quarterback 110%. Again, I said Mike Yurkich is coming in to be the new OC, looking to bring a new fire and a new light to this Penn State offense. And I expect it to be a lot better than last season. Look, last season, injuries, opt-outs, COVID, anything you want to say about that, it was tough, but I think bringing in new energy and a new scheme to Penn State could really, really help them this year. So that's going to be exciting to look for. Penn State's defense, on the other hand, they struggled last season. They gave up like over 27 points a game, which in this day and age of college football is not good. You got to try to limit them to as much as you can if you really, really want to be competitive, or at least this Penn State offense would have had to put up like 35 plus point games each and every weekend to be able to be an undefeated or a one-loss team in that scenario. I think they lose a lot up front. They lose a couple guys up front. I look at especially, I don't know, Odafe Owe, which is how he's going in the NFL now, but Jason Owe, obviously, I can't say he's the best player on Penn State last season, because even though Micah Parsons, yeah, I'm pretty sure he opted out, he was the best player from Penn State in last draft class. But I think Owe was still one of the really, really solid guys that Penn State had last season, although he didn't pick up a sack last year, which was interesting. The D-line is going to be a struggle this season. They're losing some guys. I look at the linebacker room, and I think that they are the strength of this team. You look at Jesse Lukita, and you look at Brandon Smith to be the meat of this defense. I think that they're the two most talented, or the position group that is the most talented too. And I think also this secondary is going to be really good, especially I look at the safeties. I look at Brisker and Brown as being the two main guys over there. So as a whole, Penn State from last season, if you play with fans in the stadium, because yes, I do believe that the Beaver Stadium fans and the atmosphere does make a difference in some big games, especially when you're traveling to a place like this, which Auburn will be doing. I think that that does make a difference, a huge difference. And I think Penn State being able to not have to worry about COVID and having a bunch of guys back from injury and stuff like that, I think Penn State will be a better team this season than what they were last year. We talk about Auburn. Auburn, again, they got a new coach, Brian Harsin, coming in. We actually talked a bit about this for when we did a schedule breakdown with the guys from the War Report who do some amazing Auburn content. Honestly, some of the best college football content in general that I've seen on YouTube or on any platform, but they do specifically Auburn. So if you're an Auburn fan, definitely go check them out. They know what they're doing over there. They got some great segments. Definitely, I'd recommend. And their key for this game, or something that they really focused, is on Bo Nix, and this offense really in general hasn't been able to travel well over the last couple of seasons. So that's going to be a huge key for Auburn in this game. I'm going to go over some of the keys for Auburn. I think Bo Nix in general, one interception maximum. I think the second that he throws two interceptions, I think that this game will be put in the bag for Penn State. You travel there, you can't just give the other team the ball. You can't give Penn State back the ball. So I'm going to limit Bo Nix one interception in this game. That is going to be one. That's a maximum. Zero is what you want to go for. If you can get a negative number, get a negative number. If he could go out and get an interception of his own, put him in on defense, then so be it. But one interception maximum to keep Auburn in this game. I think Tank Bigsby has to take advantage of how bad this or not bad, but how weakened this D-line will be next season. And the O-line really for Auburn has to take advantage of that. Get the rushing game going, rely on the rushing game, because I do think that Penn State's secondary is a lot better than their D-line this season. So I'd say get Tank and the O-line really, really going. Rely on that in this game. You do not want Bo Nix constantly throwing the ball in a loud and raucous atmosphere in Beaver Stadium. If you allow Penn State's O-line to dominate in this game, I think that the game's over. It's going to be really, really tough. If Penn State wins the line on both sides of the ball, or any line of the ball, side of the ball, it's going to be really, really tough. I look back at a game like Georgia last year. That was just a game that was absolutely dominated for Georgia. Georgia just went in their rushing game. I think that they rushed for over 300 yards with their running backs in that game. Like Stetson Bennett didn't even have some amazing game passing. It was just that the rushing game was so good. And Georgia's defensive line was just able to get after Bo Nix the whole time. And when you're in a away game, you go to Georgia, not even a packed Georgia stadium, but still your rival, the game's big. It means a lot to a lot of the fans and their raucous and everything. You're not going to go into an atmosphere like that, not winning the trenches, and then come out with a win. It's just not going to happen. And then my last one, obviously, with the Beaver Stadium effect and everything going on, be able to drown out the noise. It is going to be tough. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be a really, really tough task for Auburn to go out and drown out the noise from both the Penn State side and like all the fans and everything. It's going to be loud. Somehow you have to drown out the noise and really be able to focus on the game, because we saw what happened with the Michigan game. Penn State walks out the first couple seconds, or Michigan walks out the first couple seconds. They have to call a timeout because it's too loud. Just stuff like that. If Auburn gets rattled by what's going on around them, they're not going to be able to win this game. Overall, I have no clue who's going to win this game. I don't even want to give a score prediction, because I think both teams could definitely win this game. But if I had to pick a winner right now, I can't pick a score, because I still need to learn lots more and watch these two teams lots more than what I've seen now. But I think Penn State, favor Penn State just because they're home. When you're in doubt, always go with the home team. I think that is a very, very smart thing to do, because home field advantage is real in college football and it really will help. So that is that for that segment, guys. I appreciate you guys coming out. Let's see. Anyone in the comments? We'll take a few questions and then wrap it up. Go watch this NFL schedule release, unless that's already happened. I can't remember if it was 8 or 7:30. I think it was 8. I'm pretty sure it's 8. Let me just double check. Go on NFL. Schedule release is at 8 p.m. Whoa. Big news here. I know this isn't college football related really, but did he resign? Oh, resigned. Oh my gosh. Are you serious? Like he's gone for good now? I saw that I thought at first I saw re-signed, and I was like, no way we just signed him back. And then I was like, no, we're not talking about sports. Resigned. Because he said that he submitted his resignation and then whatever the like school said whatever, but that is big news if he's gone because I'm going there next year. And the whole situation, I think I don't like cancel culture or anything like that. Like I think it's terrible, but it does make the university look bad, especially when we're going up against USC and people are like, oh, you guys are the fake USC. And when your president says the University of California at your grad, it just does not look that good. Let's go on Twitter. But thanks for bringing that up, Jaden. That's crazy. Because he like plagiarized his whole speech and everything too. People are not happy. That's crazy. Crazy. You wonder why we call him Bo Picks. One interception in that game. I'm giving him one interception, and then that is it. Game's over. If he throws two, game's over. Penn State wins. So I'll wrap it up there. We are about 17 minutes away from this NFL. Thoughts on Tennessee gets out of the transfer portal. Thoughts on Tennessee. What Tennessee has got out from the transfer portal, or the guys that have left Tennessee? Like, are we talking Henry To'oTo'o and Eric Gray and all those guys, or are we talking about the guys that have transferred into Tennessee? By the way, good luck to your Titans. We're gonna go watch the. I'm gonna go watch at least the schedule release. I don't know if you guys care about that because you already know your opponents and everything, but it's interesting. I like to see when we're playing and who and stuff like that. Like my Bears, we play a first Sunday night game against the Rams. I have to double check who Tennessee got out of the portal. I know they got a few guys. It's off the tip of my tongue and who they got. Transfers. Again, it's been such a crazy transfer portal there, guys. Transfer. Oh yeah, Hendon Hooker, of course, from Virginia Tech. I thought him in the spring game, he definitely looked like one of the better quarterbacks there. Joe Milton, I think, is going to be huge. Getting him at a where'd he come from? Michigan. Bernie's a Michigan fan on this channel, and I can't believe I didn't know that. Yes, sir. Go Bears. Yeah, Jawan Mitchell, I think, is good too. Go Bears. Give me a bear down. Tighten up. Hey, we're not really rivals. We played last season, but Bears and Titans. I got nothing against the Titans. I had Clowney last year, and I'm a big Clowney fan. So I'll wrap it up there, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. As always, come back for next show. We're doing it on Monday. Hit me up in the comments of any of these videos. Like I'm gonna repost and JH Sports. I will be doing a schedule reaction. That is actually what I'm going to do right now. But give me if when I repost these clips or whatever, give me your thoughts on what you want to see for the next coming shows and everything. Because I see we got some Alabama fans, we got some Tennessee fans, obviously, we got some Georgia fans. We got a good, solid culture of a bunch of different fans. So let me know what you guys want to hear, and I will grant your wishes. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like down below, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and definitely come back next time.